So this is Liz, and she's going to talk to us today about Enneagrams.
Nailed it.
Okay. I'm going to kind of start out and tell you what I got when I took the test because it's confusing. It's like 98% here, 65% there.
The math is not there for me. My brain was like, this is fucking wrong.
The Virgo in me.
Yeah. Don't like this math. It's incorrect.
And then we can kind of go back as we're talking and kind of understand a little bit better, and then we can do the same thing with Ariana. So what I got was 98% 1, 98% 5, and 95% 6. And those are just kind of like the top ones I got. Ariana, what about you?
I got a 98% 6, a 90% 1, and an 84% 3. The other ones are kind of whatever.
Okay. And what test did y'all take?
The Truity.
Sure.
Yeah. So one thing I will say before we start is a lot of our listeners are questioning because they've took the test a few times, and I'm sure there's a ton of tests out there, and we kind of talked about it's just a starting point.
Yeah.
It changes every time people take it. And so maybe we can talk about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to let you kind of like start, and then we'll just interrupt you.
Sounds great. That sounds good. So where I think I will start with the Enneagram is to just give you like a little bit of an overview of what the fuck it even is. Yeah. And then a little bit of the history of it. And we can sort of then get into the tests because they're kind of weird. So one of the most pervasive things that you hear about the Enneagram is that it is this ancient personality typing tool.
Yeah, I've heard
it's not. It's not that. It's and I say that because, and not from like any position of moral superiority, because up until probably like last week, I would have said the same thing. And it's understandable why there's confusion around why it's like an ancient test. It's not. Of course, the like shapers of and the people who brought forward the Enneagram and developed the theory were informed by ancient human wisdom. Totally. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not an ancient system. Where it also gets confused is because the name Enneagram, 9 being Ennea and gram being figure, shape, circle, whatever. That's ancient Greek. So
yeah, so they're like, it's ancient.
Yeah, it's easily confused for being this ancient, like mysterious thing. It's not. There's actually some pretty clear-cut origin of it. But what the Enneagram is, what it actually is a tool for self-development, for growth, for evolution, for transformation. And there's kind of two components to it. You've got the Enneagram of personality type, and that's the thing that is talked about and kind of is people's first introduction in. And then there's the Enneagram of transformation, which is what you're supposed to do with your knowledge of your type, other people's type, etc.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, because I got my type and I was like, okay.
Right. What now?
So do I just read
the link that I clicked on was actually a Scientology website, and I was like, okay, all right, okay, cool.
That's a little wild.
That is.
It's kind of funny because the Enneagram is a little bit controversial in particularly Christian circles. Not all of them, not all Christian circles.
Which is funny because I swear to God, every Enneagram IG is, I love Jesus, bless up.
No way.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what's sort of controversial about it. You've got people who kind of like really from all denominations of Christianity who are on board with it. And then from all denominations, you've got people who are like the Enneagram, more like the pentagram. Like it's very like divisive and funny.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
extreme.
It's really funny how divided the Christian community is around the Enneagram. Because the truth is, in this country, in the U.S., where I'm making assumptions that we're all in the U.S., which may not be a fair assumption, but
we have a lot of foreign listeners.
Canadians, right?
Yes, Canadians.
Yeah.
Foreign.
So there's, in this country, it's sort of been housed for a long time in very Christian communities. It was largely used by Jesuits for spiritual direction. Jesuits are a brand of Catholicism, a brand of Catholic priests, an order.
That, Ariana.
Yeah, those are people.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so it's kind of funny that there's just this this question, and a lot of the like pushback against the Enneagram as it relates to Christians who think it's like akin to witchcraft. It's because of that misconception that it's this ancient tool. And there's conversations about like, did it have Sufi origins? Did it have these origins? Did it have that? So it's really fascinating, again, how that misconception has informed people's relationship towards it.
Yeah.
So
that is really interesting that you just kind of read it on the internet and
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the speed Cliff Notes version of the history of the Enneagram is that this man, his name was George Gurdjieff, was in, and it's spelled kind of funky. He was teaching in the late 1800s in Paris, and he was actually teaching the Enneagram through the body centers. Which we'll talk a little bit about. I know he wasn't looking at the types. In fact, he didn't say anything about the types. He was teaching it through music and dance. Right.
I love that.
Yeah, none of this like typing stuff. And he taught it as a tool for evolution and balance in relationships.
Okay.
So he had this idea that we all as human beings have these sort of three centers of intelligence: the body, the head, the mind, and the emotions, the heart. And in order to evolve, you need to bring all three into balance and become aware of all three.
Deep. That is deep.
It is, and we're gonna get a little bit deep today.
Yes.
And I am gonna hurt people's feelings, and I'm at peace with that. So.
All right, let me get my tissues.
I'm ready. Fuck me up.
So anyway, that is kind of the origin of the Enneagram. From there, it was developed into this psycho-spiritual system. The types came forward with people like this man named Echazo, this man named Naranjo, who was a psychologist. And they kind of really developed it into the personality system that it is today. There are actually interesting, I just learned that Echazo, who's kind of another giant figure in the history of the Enneagram, just died last week.
Oh my God, R.I.P.
Last week of March.
Damn.
I know.
R.I.P. We lost the real one.
We did.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, then
How
there
old
are
was he?
Rizzo and Hudson, who, and Daniels, and then Richard Rohr, who again have like developed this theory out more, and really bulked it up. They kind of combined psychology and counseling and spirituality into this really robust system. So that's the general. That's not an elevator pitch, but that's what the Enneagram is and a little bit of the history. So it's not an ancient system, and it's understandable why there's a misconception that it's an ancient system, but it's not an ancient system. So,
sounds good.
Figuring out your type. There are a million tests online, and they are useful in that they can help you narrow down some options. So that test that you took actually did a good job of narrowing down options. It didn't even sort of make the claim that it was going to tell you exactly what you were. It just said, here are some pretty solid matches that you want to investigate. And that's what I would recommend any kind of test for. Like to let it lead you in a direction to research on your own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing about tests. There is kind of like I was telling Caroline before we started recording, there's the RHETI, the RHETI, the Rizzo Hudson Enneagram typing inventory, typing inquiries. I can't remember the exact acronym, but it's like $12 on the Enneagram Institute. That's another great test and is kind of the gold standard for tests. So if you wanted to invest $12 to figure out, I guess that's
my biggest thing was Caroline texted me. She's like, "Did you take the test yet?" And I immediately broke out in like a cold sweat, and I was like, "No," but also I'll do it. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, "This better not take 5 fucking hours," because I swear to God,
the RHETI is like 140 questions. It's a lot of questions.
Fuck that. See, at that point, halfway through, I'm like, just always. Like, I don't even care anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, I'm sorry, real quick. Can you guys still hear me? Because I changed my microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loud
Cool.
and clear.
Okay. Continue.
Sure. So anyway, that's what typing is good for. It's good for capturing a couple of options for you to do your own research. There are some great books to figure out your type. The Essential Enneagram is a great book for figuring out your type. The Road Back to You, a great book to figure that out. But if you're looking to do it for free, just go on the Enneagram Institute website and look at the description of types, because they have really thorough descriptions.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Hold on, I'm gonna write that down. What is it?
the Enneagram Institute.
I'm gonna try and add some of these in our like show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're good. I just tried to do the whoa, and I did the like.
There. That's all right. So, what would be helpful next? Oh, maybe some like understanding about how the system works.
Yeah.
Okay. So the theory goes that we all have a dominant type that we lead with, right? We are not a type. We have a type that we lead with.
Okay.
We have access to all of the types.
Okay.
But we have this one type that we lead with, and it's, there's varying theories around how it came to be, whether it was nurture or nature. But suffice to say, from a very early age, we were pretty cemented in what we believed about the world, and that particular type informed what we paid attention to.
Okay.
In the world. So as an example, as a type 8, I picked up a belief about the world as unjust and unfair, and the strong prey on the weak, so I need to be protective. And so all of my attention goes towards protecting what is small and weak and vulnerable within me, right? Whereas both of you said that you tested as 1s or 6s.
Yep. 1s. Were you a 6, Ariana?
Both.
I'm a 98% 6.
Okay.
I am. So I was 98% 6 and 98% 1, I think.
Sure.
I'm a 90% 1, yeah.
Sure. So let's say you're a 1. That means that early on you picked up this belief that in order to be loved, you have to be perfect. You have to be.
What?
Yep.
What?
And so all of your attention goes to paying attention to what is wrong within yourself, and when you can't handle that for much longer.
Damn, I got a list right here. Shit. Let's go over my list.
Right?
Perfectionist, kind of a bitch.
Damn.
That is what your type does. It talks to you, it tells you, reveals to you where your attention goes, what your like fixated on.
That's interesting because I like to think about it that way. Because I mean, I was really confused about why every time I tested, because I took it quite a few times. I've taken it quite a few times over the past few years just for fun because I see Instagram posts about it. And no matter what other numbers show up, I'm always a 1.
Oh my God, y'all!
So,
Shout out to my man who just brought me some wine. Okay.
what?
Well done.
At 2:40? Hell
It's
yeah.
Saturday.
In your
it's-
robe.
COVID time.
Yeah, that too. That 100% as well. Yes. So it's, again, it may be worth it for you to look into the type 1 to dig in and do some more research around what type 1 is. And I can give you a little sneak preview when we start to talk about the types. But if you're consistently coming up with a type as your testing, worth looking at.
Yeah.
So we've got a dominant type. Now let's talk about all the like complicating factors of the system. Every type has what's known as 2 wings, which are the 2 numbers on either side of you when you're looking at the circle picture. So again, let's stick with type 1 here. Let's say you're both type 1s. Your wings are going to be type 9 and type 2. You're never going to have a type 3 wing.
Okay. So they need to be like next to each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right. Now, typically, you're going to have a stronger, more dominant wing. So, as an example, I'm a type 8. My stronger wing is the type 9. I have the 7 wing, but I don't see it showing up much. And the work is to develop the 7 wing. My work is to balance out and access that 7 that I have as my wing.
Wow.
So,
am I about to change my whole fucking persona with this?
This is fucking me up because if I'm a 1 and then my 2 wings are a 2 and a 9, the 9 is the peacemaker, and I'm all about peace, like going with the flow. And the other one's giver, and I'm not much of a giver, but it's there, and I'm so fucked in the head right now.
So here's the thing: the wing. What's funny is the wings balance us out. They like smooth out our rough edges because I'm an 8 and we're all about fighting, but my dominant wing is the 9, the peacemaker. So it like chills me out a little bit. So
I love that.
Yeah. So the wings serve a function, and they bring us into some balance, which is a really good thing.
Yeah.
So those are your wings, and again, one is typically more dominant than the other, so the work is to balance them out.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have what is known as the integration point and the disintegration point. So those lines across the Enneagram circle, those represent the movement around the system. Each number is connected to 2 other numbers. So again, let's stick with the example and the possibility that y'all are type 1s. Your disintegration number, the number that the theory goes that you kind of slide towards as you get stressed, is type 4, which is known as the individualist, the tortured artist, the tragic romantic. So whereas a type 1 typically has a very like overdeveloped sense of responsibility for taking care of everything in the world, when they get really stressed out, they move towards the like melancholic side of type 4, which is just like, it's all on my shoulders. Nobody else understands.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right? Yeah, right. They get kind of
relatable.
Now, when their integration point, when they're in a more healthy space, they move towards 7, which is the fun, bubbly, playful, spontaneous type. Yeah,
You're bubbly and fun, bitch.
They
This
cut
is
loose.
freaking me out.
Now, here's what I'll say. There's the old theory is that there's integration and disintegration point, and you pick up the low kind of qualities of the disintegration point and the high qualities of the integration point. The more modern understanding, the more contemporary understanding is, no, we have access to good and bad from all of that, right? Like we actually can pick up the shittier side of type 7 when we're stressed. We can pick up the better parts of type 4 when we're in a better place. We have access to the whole system. Those are the places we more easily slide into, but you can kind of see the worst parts of yourself in other types as you get stressed. So
that makes
here's
sense,
your integration and disintegration theory. And then kind of back to this Gurdjieff idea of intelligence centers. The Enneagram is then broken down into thirds, into intelligence centers. So types 8, 9, and 1 fall into what's known as the body center of intelligence. These are people who absorb the world through their bodies in different ways, in distinct ways, but that's their kind of, their primary mode of feeling and think. It starts in their bodies.
Explain that better. I don't what do you mean in their body? Okay,
Your
instinct. Okay, got you.
Instinct. They have very razor sharp instincts that they feel in their bodies.
So your gut instinct.
Exactly. Their emotions show up in their bodies. Their anger, type 1s, they hold their anger right here.
It's like
go away.
Because good people don't express anger, but the world's so fucked up, so how could you not be angry? That's the constant back and forth for the type 1. But they hold it here. Right?
Yes.
9s kind of they do this thing to avoid conflict where they kind of self-placate internally. You're not going to get them ruffled because they're doing so much work internally to keep things smooth on the surface.
Okay.
And then 8s are we're pretty explosive. We're rowdy assholes. So that's now here's the other thing. There's a dominant emotion for each of these particular centers as well. And for the body center, the instinct center, the dominant emotion is anger.
What?
Yes. Again, all types orient differently around anger, but anger is the big one for 8, 9, and 1. Okay.
Fuck astrology.
Yeah,
astrology had it going on.
Yeah, this is actually.
I do fuck with astrology. I enjoy it. I get a kick out of it, but I know the Enneagram. I'm not good with astrology. Okay, so 2, 3, and 4. 2, 3, and 4 are in the heart center. These are the emotional people. These are I know, gross. And they live in their emotions. They're very relational people, and they kind of have this longing for the past. Body center people are very immediate. It's right now. Their attention is on right now. The 2s, 3s, and 4s, their attention is kind of looking backwards, and in a longing way. Now, the emotion that they deal with is shame. The feeling of being unloved. So again, they all orient differently around that, but that's the dominant emotion. And then you have the 5, 6, and 7, who are the head center, and they're looking into the future quite a bit. And their dominant emotion is fear. They're very afraid. Again, it looks different, orients differently, but they're very fearful of the future. Yeah. So there you go. That's the bird's eye view of the whole system.
Yeah.
Well, not even. That's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's just the littlest bit.
Yeah.
But it felt like a lot.
It's the more that I learn about it, the more I'm holy shit, there's so much to learn and there's so little that I know. But
what is your history with them? How did you get started? How long have you been doing it?
Yeah. So I was first introduced to the Enneagram 10 years ago. I was just out of college. I know. Well, I was a baby. I was just out of college and I was living in community and working with these same people that I was living with. And when you work with people, that's hard enough. And then when you live with people, that's hard enough. And when you're doing both with the same group of people, the possibility for homicide becomes much more real.
Yeah.
So the director of the organization was like, I'm going to give you all a tool for how to understand each other better. And she brought this woman in to like sit in our living room for a couple of hours and tell us about the Enneagram. And I actually mistyped at that point, which is kind of funny. I was wrong about
what did you type as?
I thought that I was a type 2, which I am fucking not. But the thing that really spoke to me was like the dark side of the two, which was just how like belligerent and angry they get when they are not thanked and praised for their help. Which still rings true, but the 8, as I then like kind of went on and started doing more research as I got older, like the Enneagram was a thing that I knew about 10 years ago, but I didn't really start working with it until probably like 5 or 6 years ago. And when I first like brought it to my students, so I work in higher ed, I work as an associate university chaplain. And I brought it to my students. I was like, oh, I remember this being like a really cool tool. Maybe you guys will think this is interesting. So I was like going through all the different types, and then I start reading the description for the type 8, and I was like, oh no, this like it's a little bit better than the type 2. And there was this one line in it in the description, which is in the Essential Enneagram, and I think it's in the Essential Enneagram. And he says like, you might not win every fight that you're in, but they'll know you were there. I was like, oh, and all my students were like, yup. Right.
It you.
Right. And then as I like started to kind of dig into it, I was like, oh, right. Like I have a lot of growing edges around my vulnerability. I actually like my attention goes to who I think is in charge and who I need to protect and how I need to protect myself. So that was how I kind of like figured out my own type finally. And then I had a grad student who was an intern with our organization, and she was going through this class. So as we met every week, we were talking about the Enneagram and talking about her type and how it was showing up. She was a type 5. And then I just like, I think I read Ian Cron's book. And a couple of years ago, I guess like a year and a half ago, I was like, oh, there are all these really funny astrology Instagrams that like make fun of astrology. And then
we love those.
Yes. And then there's this email that you can get every day. It's called Any a Thought of the Day. And it's just like a little thought that gets emailed to you every day for your Enneagram type. And it can be rude as fuck. Like really, really rude. And it can hurt your feelings. And I was like, oh my gosh, I should do what these astrology Instagrams have done for the Enneagram. That'd be funny.
Yeah.
So I just kind of started, and it took off in a way I could not have expected.
People love self-deprecation.
They do.
Drop your Instagram name.
It is Rude Ass Enneagram.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Sure. Yes. So it's and here's the other thing I'll say. There are some amazing Enneagram teachers out there, one of whom I study with. Her name is Ann Geary, and they focus on the higher qualities of the Enneagram, of each type. And I think that is important and wonderful, and I will touch on those, but that's not my bullshit.
Yeah. We don't like positivity over here.
Not for us. Get out with your positive ass.
Right. Yes. No, what I like to do is make people laugh about their bullshit.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's an important part of growth and evolution as well. I think we need to be able to laugh at ourselves in order to look at how we're fucking up our lives.
100%.
Yep.
So that's my shtick. And that's how I kind of do Rude Ass Enneagram, and that's how I do any kind of like workshops or talking about Enneagram. That's what I do. So
I think that's so awesome that you have such an in-depth background with it, because I feel like there are a lot of accounts out there that just kind of go along and say, oh, this is my type and I'm going to make memes about this type, or do like cute little artsy type ones, so it's nice to know you have that
Yeah.
in-depth knowledge about it.
Yeah. Well, I've been largely self-taught until very recently.
Mhm.
And I was I was really resistant to people asking me to teach it, and because I feel like I wasn't like learning. I didn't have formal training is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Again, largely self-taught. But then I started working with this teacher, Ann Geary of the Enneagram approach. And that really, like, number one, I went to this workshop and I went thinking like, oh, I'm going to learn a lot to teach. And then when I walked out of the workshop, I was like, shit, I got a lot of work to do, like, on myself. So that was a good, like, humbling moment.
That's the best feeling, though, at least for me. I love, like, constantly working on myself. It's probably a sickness.
Well, if you're type 1, then you think that you can always improve.
Yeah, and then I'm a piece of shit. Yeah.
Relatable. Relatable.
Anyway.
So anyway, I'm really grateful to have gotten to do the work that I get to do and to learn from Anne and from the teachers that I read. I'm very lucky in that way. And I do try to bring in some of that depth into Rude Ass Enneagram as well. I try to do it in a funny way, but I do see a lot of accounts that kind of just like, and sometimes I'm lazy too. So like, I'm not trying to like look down on anyone. Sometimes I'm lazy. I'm like, fuck it. This will like appeal to the broad, and that's fine enough. But I prefer to give people a little bit more meat to chew on. So they're like laughing and then they're like, oh, why does that hurt a little more? Right? Like, I prefer to cut a little deeper.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, that's kind of my background. That's my credentials, I guess, which, aren't really much, but here we are.
Than us.
So types, you want to talk about types?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So I am going to piss off the ones.
Oh, okay.
I'm ready.
You all and your type 1 listeners. And I'm going to start with type 8 because we're going to start in the body center.
Okay.
And then go to the different centers. So type 8 is known as the challenger, sometimes known as the protector. These are your people who are like, they have personalities that are large, in charge, and just this side of belligerent. Like they are rowdy motherfuckers. And the thing that you need to know about the type 8 is that to them, conflict is intimacy. We build trust by picking fights. Because if you can stand up to us, then we can trust you if we're facing something bigger. Right?
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
That is some
I see.
mind fuckery.
That's some deep shit. That's some deep shit, but I like
That
it.
is the type 8. We
Wow.
find intimacy in conflict. And we get confused
Damn.
that like not everybody else does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So 8s get labeled as intimidating quite often, and they get told that they are too much quite often. And I don't want to make any 8 feel better and like, yeah, you are too much, but that's fine. That's a good thing. Like, I'm not going to tell you you're not too much. You are a fucking lot.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. The world needs that. But what fuels that allotness, what fuels that spiky, crusty exterior are their feelings of vulnerability.
Mm.
Type 8s, they're going to fucking hate me for saying this. I hate me for saying this because I am a type 8. But we're actually like tender, squishy little beanie babies underneath everything. Like we really are. We're very, very sensitive.
Yeah.
Deeply sensitive people. Actually, kind of some of the most tender people that you'll ever meet. But we don't want you to see that. And we actually, like, that's also part of like picking fights is you have to earn the right to be present to that.
Interesting.
Yes.
Huh.
Yep. Really crusty assholes.
Yeah.
Who are just like the softest little teddy bears underneath it all.
I kind of see that. So what? Okay, so going back to the body thing. So
Yeah.
as like a 1, does it cut? Okay, Kelly, like astrology, where it's like earth signs and like fire signs. Is it like we can go on the spectrum that way? Because as a 1, 8, 9 kind of, how does that work?
Or can it work like that?
Or does it not? Or is that like more of an astrology thing where it's not like that?
I'm not sure how the astrology thing works.
So like, I'm a Capricorn, Ariana's a Virgo, and then Taurus are all Earth signs. So they're more like
Taurus.
Okay.
Oh
so
my God, weird.
Which is why we connect.
Taurus, Gemini cusp, but that's beyond the pale.
So they all kind of like connect to the Earth, and they're more grounded. They're reliable, just more level-headed, kind of.
Gotcha.
Is that what you're talking about, Ariana?
Yeah, how it's kind of like it goes across
center?
like a plane in the center. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, there are characteristics that folks in the body center and in the anger triad share. Again, anger.
Yeah.
They all have a relationship to anger, and it dominates them in some way. And again, their focus tends to be more immediate. They tend to be very kind of like present people. Anne likes to say that these are the specialists in control.
Oh my God, that's me, bitch. Okay. Got you.
They have,
okay.
and they kind of exude like a "don't fuck with me" energy. Boundaries are really important to the body type.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So right next to 8, you have your 9s. And 9s are, actually, let me back up real quick and do the disintegration integration thing for every type.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, just threw my microphone across the table. So type 8's integration point is type 2, the giver. So the theory goes that when they are in a healthy place, you get to see them be a beanie baby. You get to see them be these loving, giving, generous people who are affectionate and warm and cuddly.
Once you fight it out.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Gotta see these hands.
To that. Right. And their disintegration point is type 5, the investigator. So when they get stressed, their energy drops way the hell off, and they become very kind of like reclusive and retreat and pull all the way back. They're very stingy of their energy and of their generosity, and it's just a total energy shift.
Yeah.
So there's your 8. We're done with 8. 9, peacemaker or mediator. These are like super chill. They're type 9s are like the most well-liked type on the Enneagram. People love them because they're really like go with the flow. They're really chill. They're really laid back. They don't push their own agenda. And they can be very, very like receptive type of people, right? Like you can go to them and talk to them about your problems and they're not going to recenter themselves. But that is because somewhere along the line, they picked up the belief that they are not as important as other people.
Oh,
it's sad. It is. It's sad.
Sad.
And they go to great lengths to avoid asserting themselves and asserting their own importance. They're very afraid that it will stir up conflict, and they just want to keep the peace. That's what they want. They want to fly under the radar, but type 9s are really funny. They are, so 8s are strong in a very outward way, right? They're stubborn in a very outward way. If they don't want to do something, they'll fucking tell you why. 9s are stubborn like a mountain. You're just not going to move them.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell you. They're going to avoid you. But you're not going to get them to do what you want them to do. And if you manage to, they will be passive-aggressive motherfuckers about it. Super passive-aggressive.
As you're talking about these, I'm like going through my mind thinking of people that like I love and that are close to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if that's their type.
Right, but that's their type.
time.
Yeah. I'm
Don't
just typing
tell them
people
that's
now.
their type, but
Yeah.
it's okay to think it.
Yeah.
Just don't tell them. Let them figure it out themselves. The other thing that's very like typical of the type 9 is that they have, again, anger being the dominant emotion, but they don't suppress it, they repress it. So they forget it. They like forget their anger. But that shit builds.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And eventually it tends to erupt over the thing that it's not actually about.
Oh, hold
Yes.
on.
Hold up. I think I'm married to a 9. Hold on a second.
There's
I think I'm married to a 9. Gordon, come take this test real quick.
But so that's okay. What are the things that go down again?
right, the integration and disintegration. So their integration point for type 9 is 3. So they turn into the achiever, or they have access to the achiever, where, here's the other thing. So I forgot to mention this. Type 9s are kind of, they can get trapped in this emotional paralysis. Again, they have a gift for seeing all of the different perspectives, for holding different opinions, for just like holding a lot. But they get trapped under that because they believe that they are not as important. Their opinions are not as important. Their preferences are not as important as everybody else.
Yeah.
So they get just weighed down by it. And it looks like laziness, like checking out, like sloth. But it's not. It's actually just like kind of exhaustion and paralysis. And so when they move to 3 in the healthy space, they become these dynamic, action-oriented peacekeepers, right? It's not just about like keeping the surface of the water still. They actually contribute to peace that is active, right?
Yeah.
When they move into an unhealthy space, they go to type 6, which is known as the loyal skeptic. The darker side of 6 is the kind of like hamster wheel of paranoia that they tend to fall victim to. Being very afraid to trust in themselves. And type 9s can fall into that really easily.
That sounds terrifying.
Listen, every type sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it sucks to be every type. And it's also wonderful. There's also gifts as well. But there's a heavy burden for every single type. So there's your type 9. Type 1. You guys ready?
No.
Okay. Great.
So, how do you know which type you actually are? Is it the percentage you get the most of?
That's the thing. I feel like these tests don't like...
Because, like, I'm 98% as type 6, and I am skeptical as fuck. I'm very jaded.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like also I'm a perfectionist, where my second highest one is type 1, which is 90%.
Right.
Like, I'm so, I don't know. I feel like I'm a type 1 as fuck, but 98% type 6, like, what the hell?
So figuring out your dominant type, the type that you lead with, is a process.
Oh, okay.
It's like a personal thing, right? Like a test won't, it'll kind of guide you, but you have to.
Right. I got to do some research. Got you.
Yeah. Now here's the other thing that's like not a very neat, conclusive answer, which is that we have access to all the types. So like there will be things in every type that resonate.
Yeah.
And again, with those like, with the movement within the system, you're going to feel things are going to resonate with you more depending on the context of your life.
You.
Right.
I love it.
Yes. Okay. So type 1s, the perfectionist, also known as the reformer. Okay. Type 1s. What is most characteristic of type 1s is their internal judge. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Continue.
Yep. They have this voice within them that is just constantly, Caroline, that is constantly critiquing them, berating them. It's their feelings about their feelings, and it's their feelings about everything else. Right? And here's the thing. I'm going to blow your mind. Nobody else has that.
What?
Yeah. Type type 1 is really the only one that has like an.
Well, I found out which one I am.
So you're telling me my husband doesn't understand when I constantly tell him I'm a piece of shit?
Correct. Correct. Right. Exactly right. Like, internal judge saying you're trash. Like,
Wow.
Yeah.
Love
And
this
Ariana,
for
that
me.
explains so much.
Yeah, I love this for me. This is great.
so a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand how exhausting it is to be a type 1 because they constantly have that internal dialogue of what they could be doing better about, just how awful they are and how awful the world around them is. And so that's like the kind of cornerstone of the type 1 is this internal judge that tells them how they're fucking up.
Yeah.
But type 1s, I'm gonna like put a little aloe on the burn here. Type 1s are very disciplined people. They're very responsible and reliable people. Like if you give them a task, they will do it and they will do it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Now that becomes a problem because they will not give a task to anybody else because nobody else will do it correctly.
Damn straight.
Right.
I'm gonna just do it myself. Thank you, though.
Right. Exactly.
I'm gonna do it right.
Right. So they have this like overdeveloped sense of responsibility for everything. They have great integrity. These are people who are principled and they will not bend from those principles. The principles are not necessarily aligned with rules, external rules and laws. Like type 1s kind of get the reputation of being rule followers, but only as much as the rule makes sense to them.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. If there's a rule that they find to be arbitrary, and especially if there's a rule that does not uphold fairness, fuck it.
Yeah.
Type 1s are very concerned with fairness. Again, being known as the reformer, they want things to be equal. They want the plane to be level.
Makes sense.
Again, like we talked about with this anger piece, the world's a pretty broken, fucked up place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fair to be angry, type 1s. It's okay. But again, they have this conception that good people don't express their anger outwardly. So they consciously suppress their anger. It comes out sideways too. They don't do a great job, but they don't celebrate it the way that 8s do, and they don't forget it. It's just constantly simmering, and it kind of comes out in these quick little jabs when their jaw can't hold it anymore.
Our poor husbands.
Yeah, sorry, boo.
It's okay. They've got their own bullshit, and we'll talk about that too.
My husband's a type 1 too, so.
Oh God.
He is?
He is. That's what he was.
Shut
98.
up.
He was 98% type 1.
Oh.
I did
Are
not
you
see
gonna
that.
tell us they were gonna get divorced or something?
No. Oh, here. Thank you for bringing up a great point or a great
good.
question that gets often asked. There are no types that are better suited for other types.
So totally different than astrology.
Oh, okay. I kind of love that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like astrology, like,
Right.
when they're like, oh, so-and-so's good with this so-and-so. Like, I'm married to my aquarium, and they said that we're not allowed to be together, so.
Oh, that's really funny. Yes. I got really angry when I found out that my rising is Sag.
Yeah.
Because I dated a Sag who was an asshole. I was so mad. But then I was like, no, that tracks.
That's definitely a real thing.
Yeah. On the other hand, I love me some Cancers and Leos.
Oh, I can't stand Leos, but okay.
Alrighty.
Love them.
This is not about astrology.
I know, you're right. All right, so the integration and disintegration point of type 1.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, their integration point is type 7, which is the epicure or the enthusiast. Very playful, very spontaneous, busting out of some of the routine that type 1 typically loves and adheres to.
That bachelorette tattoo though.
Hey!
Yeah, we got random tattoos on my bachelorette trip, so it's spontaneous.
There you go.
That's a thing.
Exactly. Cutting loose.
Sorry.
And then type 4 is their disintegration point, where again, like that kind of tortured aloneness plagues them in their over responsibility for the world and fixing this broken place.
Yeah.
So
now let me ask you, and this is, you might not even be able to answer this, but I find that when I'm like extremely stressed or just overwhelmed, I want to be by myself. I thrive when I'm by myself. Like, honestly, my husband and I do not spend much time together because we both like need to be in our own spaces. So I wonder if that has anything to do with that.
That could have something.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, 4s fours have a funny, they have a funny way of, they desperately want connection, but they tend to believe that they're not going to get it. So they like kind of isolate on themselves.
Okay.
So maybe
Yeah.
the other layer that I have not introduced because I don't have as much of a grasp on it as I would like, are what's known as the instincts.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole nother can of worms with respect to the Enneagram theory, but that could also be playing a part.
Okay.
So maybe we'll do like I don't know if your listeners are interested in like
They will be.
Yeah, they will be.
You know, 3.0, 4.0, but
That's exciting.
yes,
We're definitely gonna do that.
There's just like a bottomless hole of Enneagram stuff to go into, so.
Fuck astrology. Off my radar.
Yeah, for real. Trash.
Just kidding. I'm still gonna fuck with astrology,
Absolutely.
but I'm
still gonna fuck with astrology.
I'm like so much more interested in this. At first, when we got our listeners, and they were like, "Yeah, do this."
Yeah.
I think Ariana and I are both like, "Okay."
Right.
I mean, like the memes are cute,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm here
but
for the
now that
meme.
we're like into it, and I hope our listeners feel this way, like I want to learn more about it.
I love how you're not stuck in a box.
Yeah.
Because like I think when you retake the tests, I feel like it's kind of like a fluid, like where you are in life, like where you are. Like you could be, like you were saying, you could be like a solid 1.
Yeah.
But you have like your side pieces that you kind of go in and out of. You got your side hoes that you see in.
I really like that understanding of the wings.
Today, you know, I'm like hooking up with my 4 because it's like lit.
Right.
But you know,
yeah. Yes, exactly. I love that. Yeah, it is a very
I'm gonna make that the show title, I think.
side pieces.
Write that down.
Yeah. And that's what's sort of funny about the critique of like these kind of personality tests. And for sure, some of them are like kind of boxed in, but the Enneagram is not one of those. The Enneagram is a very fluid system. And it really, again, if you keep working and going deeper into it, it becomes this amazing tool for transformation. So you're actually not stuck at all. You have an incredible pathway out of your own bullshit.
Yeah.
So,
damn.
yes.
I like that.
Yeah. So now we're into the heart and the shame center.
Shame.
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 Yes. So type 2 is known as the giver or the nurturer. And they are your warm, fuzzy, cuddly teddy bears of the the Enneagram. They are really, really affectionate, warm, generous, incredibly giving people. They're very intuitive for like what the needs are around them. They can walk in the room and they know who's hurting and what they need. Yeah,
I wonder what that's like.
They're just sweet.
Can't relate.
Can't relate. I wonder what that's like. What do they experience?
Here's the thing. They cannot do that for themselves.
Oh.
They cannot figure out what if they can, they don't want to acknowledge it. Because what they came to believe was that in order to be loved And again, they're in that shame triad, so they're very fearful that they are not worthy of love. In order to be loved, they need to be helpful to others. They orient towards others. They don't really know who they are outside of their relationships.
So they're not self-aware. Like, they're not very self-aware.
They don't have that voice in their head.
They don't have that voice in their head. They do not have that voice in their head. I wouldn't say that they're not self-aware, because there are type 2s who are self-aware. They have a fear around their needs being too burdensome or like disqualifying them from love.
Oh, so kind of like a martyr.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
Very unhealthy 2s. Holy moly. Just like serious martyr complex.
Oh, damn.
To the detriment and of everyone. and that's where like their giving becomes very conditional. Again, like I was saying, when I first was introducing Enneagram, I thought I was a 2 because 2s want praise and recognition for their contributions. They want to be seen for what they do. And when they don't get recognized, they actually, their disintegration line is towards 8. They blow up. They become these bullies, these wrecking balls, and they get really rowdy about it. And all of that like sweetness kind of melts away. They want to be treated as special. They do. They can be very like prideful people, because they just do so much for everyone.
Yeah.
And again, they have that like amazing intuition to know what people need. But they, number one, don't understand that not everybody else has that, right? The way that you all have an internal judge, they have an internal like thermometer for what everybody else needs, but not everybody has that. So they feel very wounded that other people can't like intuit their unspoken needs. And type 2s are very oriented. The strategy that they've come up with to become loved is to go to great lengths for other people in the service of other people. They also don't understand that not everybody is that way.
Yeah.
Not everybody is going to go to great lengths to take care of all of the needs of
so true.
everyone.
I feel like I know a few people who are like that.
Same.
Probably.
Yeah.
I also will just like throw out there that I think that our society would hold up the type 2 as an ideal for women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of women type as type 2 when they kind of first are introduced to the Enneagram. That may or may not be true because of how we're conditioned.
As I was taking this test, where it's like, one of my questions was something was like, you want to nurture. I said, never. I'm a mom, but like never. And I feel like as a woman taking this test, you're like automatically like, oh, always. I said, nah, bitch, never.
Right.
No, like that is not my shit. But like, do I love and, you know, cultivate my relationships? Of course. But do I feel like I have to nurture shit? No.
Right.
Like, but I feel like as a woman taking this test, I felt guilty being like, no, but I was like, I'm not gonna lie.
Right, exactly. It's that internalized like socialization that makes you feel guilty, even though you're like, but I'm gonna be honest, which is very typical of the type 1 because of their like rock solid integrity. So it saved you there. Like I said, type 2's disintegration is type 8. So again, they pick up that like dark side wrecking ball of the type 8. And their integration point is type 4. And so they actually, they pick up the very individual, unique nature of the type 4 in health. Again, so that everything's kind of a double-edged sword. Like the best gifts of the type is also the trap that they can fall into. And so whereas it can be a plague for type 4 to feel so alone and so individual, and that like plagues the type 1 then when they move into the stress, for the type 2 who can who it's very hard for them to understand themselves outside of their relationships, when they can finally distinguish themselves and see themselves as individuals, that's a big step of growth, because they're not dependent upon their relationships to give them worth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your type 2. Type 3. Type 3 is known as the achiever or the performer. And as the name would suggest, like very dynamic, high achieving, successful people. They're your rock stars. They walk in the room and light up the room. And when you talk to them, like you feel like you're the only person in the room. They have
I hate.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah.
a fun way to distinguish a type 1 from a type 3, because sometimes people are like, well, but they both like get stuff done. They both are reliable. Type 1, if you give them a task, they will do it correctly, top to bottom, back to front, inside out. Type 3, if you give them a task, they'll do it, but it's only going to look good.
Yeah.
Like if you look behind the curtain, it's all duct tape and held up by
Stress. I'm all of a sudden stressed.
Yeah. So type 3 is very image conscious.
Oh my God, yes.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm going to throw my job under the bus here. Sorry, everybody at work that listens to this. They'll probably agree. A type 3 to me is the reps. Like, you're the prostitute of the OR. Like, you're here, you're selling your shit. Like, you are the rock star. You're the one showing up and showing out. You're like happy and bubbly and go lucky.
Yep. Yes.
That's what that reminds me of. Like, yeah, you're going to get shit done because you have to sell your product, but like, you're like the prostitute of the OR, selling yourself, selling your shit.
They sell out. They do this by mirroring their audience.
Yeah.
They will shift into whatever version of themselves that their audience will respond to best.
Wow. So real quick, really short side story.
Yeah.
I got into Enneagrams because there was this girl where I'm from in Greenville, South Carolina, and she's like really well known. She owns her own business and she's like super outgoing and like fashionable and fucking annoying. Okay. Like, yes, I follow her, but I also complain every time she posts, and she boasts about how she's a type 3, and she's like, oh my God, type 3 this and type 3 this, and now that we're talking about it, I can definitely see that, and it just really just reassures me that I would never want to be friends with her. And if she's listening to this, you know who you are.
You already know who you are. So act like you don't know you type 3, bitch.
Anyway, go ahead. Wow. Just like all resonating with
our
me.
Successful people. They look great. And
yeah, reps make a lot of money. Damn.
Yeah, even their failures
they
repackage as success.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I failed, but let me tell you how it actually was just a stepping stone in the way to success.
Yes. She's always talking about how she's on so many medicines and her therapist said this.
Oh, shit.
Okay, all right.
Send me a DM of like one of her things so I can follow her too.
I'm going to do it right now.
Okay, I can't,
I'm
can't wait.
So there you go. That is your type 3. They can be very disingenuous. They have a hard time connecting with who they actually are because their energy goes to presenting. Presenting the best version of themselves, the most likable version of themselves.
Oh.
And that is because they have this fear deep down that who they actually are outside of all of their successes and achievements is not worthy of love. Again, in that shame triad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So they have to be these like self-promotional kind of powerhouses. They can make amazing leaders. They can make inspiring people to work with. But they can also completely sell out and like just you don't know who they actually are and they don't actually know who they are.
I don't know why I just have this, like, we're talking about 1s and 3s. I just have this visual that, like, 3s are way more extroverted than 1s, and that probably has, like, no proof, but that's just how I feel about that. Like threes are like, look at me, I fit with this personality and I'm like a rock star and I shine, and ones are just kind of getting their shit done in the background.
Like,
Threes
don't
have a
actually
more
talk to me.
assertive-
Like, yeah.
Yeah, threes have a more assertive energy. Threes, sevens, and eights have a very assertive, out there energy on the Enneagram. And then there's a kind of a more passive and a more oscillating energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of tracks. Their integration point is to type 6, the loyal skeptic, where they stop being so damn self-promotional, and they really become oriented towards the team and towards the people that they love and towards more protective, kind of noble channeling of their energy versus like just propping up their fragile ego.
Yeah.
When they move towards their stress point, it's type 9, and they kind of totally just like shut the fuck down. Like they do then fall into that paralysis, that indecision, that inability to see themselves as important. So again, like massive energy shift.
Yeah, it's like a huge energy shift. You're like going from like beyond meth to like fucking chilling.
Seems exhausting.
Yeah.
Yes, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So that's your type 3. And rounding out our shame triad, we have type 4. Type 4, we've talked a little bit about them already, but to go a little more in depth, type 4s are known as the individualist, or the tortured artist, or the tragic romantic. Very, very connection-driven people. They want so badly to be deeply connected to people. They are very creative, often creatively expressive. So they're like artists and musicians, and they have a very, very like rich emotional landscape, a very expansive imagination. They love to fantasize. But they have this weird, they kind of enjoy melancholy and longing. Like they don't want to be cheered up.
Okay.
If they're in a space of like longing for what is inaccessible to them, they don't try to cheer them up. They're actually kind of happy there.
Wow.
Okay. Like a daydreamer kind of thing?
Kind of, but like it's got a sadness to it.
Oh.
So 4,
like Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Exactly.
Oh my
4s
God, yes.
kind of, they have a great capacity to be present to sadness and grief and kind of the darker emotions, the heavier emotions of life, but they're a little comfortable there. Okay. They're a little too comfortable there.
Yeah.
And they'll just stay there if they're allowed to. And they also get told that they are too much. Again, very like deep emotions, and they're in that emotion center. So their emotions are kind of everything. And not everybody is like that. So they can be really overwhelming to people. Yeah. And they have this drive to seek out authenticity. They want people to be authentic. And so they think in order to get people to be authentic, they have to dial up the drama to provoke a really authentic response. And then they can't figure out why people are turned off by that.
You know, I'm going to put them right up there with 3s. These are people that I don't surround myself with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You do want a few 4s in your life, because when you're going through some heavy
reminds me of a cat. A 4 is a cat to me. Okay.
I can see that. When you're going through some heavy shit, you want a 4 in your life, because they're going to be able to accompany you in that.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't have to face it alone. And they're a lot. They are a lot. And that's okay. Like I'm going to say the same thing to 4s that I said to 8, which like, yeah, you are a fucking lot, and that's okay. That's all right. Like, you know, you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you shouldn't have to be everyone's cup of tea.
Right.
4s, when they are healthy, they move to the space of 1. Oh, hello. There's a dog in the window.
She needs attention. She's like, please tell me my type. Whichever one is the clingy, annoying.
Oh,
No.
she might be a 4. Maybe that's why she's up here.
So I know a 4.
Is she good with grief?
No,
My dog is not.
Now, let me tell you, Ariana knows I've put this dog on like puppy Xanax. It doesn't help. I bought her CBD treats. It does not help.
No.
She's very high anxiety.
Oh. Maybe she's somewhere in the head triad then.
Yeah, poor baby.
That could make sense. So again, when they integrate, they actually move towards type 4, and they stop being so much in their imagination, and they put their feet on the ground and like get to work. Get things accomplished, get things done. And that like amazing spectrum of emotion serves the world in a really wonderful way. When they are in an unhealthy place, they move towards type 2, and they pick up the kind of manipulative space of type 2, the conditional giving, right? So like their romantic overtures of love have strings attached. So, yes, yeah, they're conditional, right?
Yeah.
Type 4, I made a joke about this in my last post. They feel very misunderstood by the world because of their great depth of emotion or whatever. And they love to tell me how I always like get it wrong in the memes. And I was like, sure, okay.
Whatever you say.
Like they kind of do it in a way that like proves my point, which is sort of funny. So that's how type 4s are sometimes. And that's fine. That's all right. We love them anyway.
And do you think a lot of like places of work use this type of test?
They're beginning to. It's become more mainstream. Mm-hmm. And I keep referencing Ann Geary. She's an amazing teacher, and I am grateful for her. And what she has pointed to is, up until the last 5 or 6 years, the Enneagram was really kind of not as well known as even like the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a hush-hush thing. It was kind of held more in religious circles and in spiritual direction and things like that. And then Ian Cron wrote The Road Back to You. Mm-hmm. And he wrote it in such an accessible way that people were like, whoa, this system's amazing. And it was just such a great introduction. And it really like pushed the Enneagram into the mainstream. So I think in the last 5 or 6 years, more corporations have begun to realize, oh, this is a really helpful tool in the workplace.
Yeah.
Therapists are understanding this is a really helpful tool for my clients, for themselves and for their relationships. So people are just starting to clue in to what a lot of these kind of like spiritual directors and religious communities have already known.
I hope it really catches on more because, I mean, like I said multiple times throughout this podcast, it's very interesting. And the more you get into the types and the different ways it's a lot, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're headed into the fear triad. So the fear triad, again, like looking forwards quite a bit, that's the direction of their fear. And again, processing the world through their brains.
Yeah.
So
she just like shoved a huge brownie in her mouth or something.
I made protein balls and they're fucking lit. And I got more wine.
Nice. Crushing the Saturday afternoon.
Fuck yeah.
So anyway, the where are we? Type 5 is known as the investigator or the researcher. And these folks are very research driven, right? They want to understand how the world works. They're fascinated by like how the world works, understanding it, what makes things tick. So they love to go down like rabbit holes and kind of grasp understanding.
Yeah.
They are deeply afraid of being seen as incompetent. And so they tend to like be very secretive of the things that they're researching. So you might know a type 5 for many, many years and have no idea that they like play piano.
Oh,
Wow.
shit.
Right. And like really well too. They've hidden that. They don't want you to know about it. They believe that the world asks too much of them. So
Bitch, this is Kevin. I'm sorry. I'm just saying that right now. This is Kevin.
Yeah.
right.
Go ahead.
They wanna know-
Interesting. My husband, I'm talking about my husband a lot. This was like his number 2 that he landed on in that test.
Yep.
They want to know exactly when something starts and when it's going to end so that they know how much emotional energy they're going to have to spend.
Okay.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, ma'am.
They like routines. They like things that they can expect. They are very naturally gifted with boundaries, sometimes a little too much so. And there's this like really unfortunate misconception that they are robots that don't have emotion because
Girl. Okay, listen.
They prefer logic, they prefer research, they prefer data, right? Like that shit is reliable. But the truth is they're actually deeply, deeply sensitive. Deeply sensitive.
If 2 is like the stereotypical woman, 5 is the stereotypical man.
Yep.
Holy
Yep.
shit, dude.
Yes, exactly.
Holy shit.
Yep. So there you go. Like type 5s and when because they're so sensitive, and their emotions feel so unpredictable and unreliable and overwhelming to them, when they start to feel emotions, they have this tendency to totally retreat, totally pull back. And you cannot crack that nut. Like the wall is up.
I mean, you can crack it, but you got to get like real creative.
Fucking ice pick. Yeah, they just feel like the world is going to demand too much of them when they haven't accounted for how much energy this will take. So they become very stingy with their energy. Again, they're brilliant people. They have a very like synthesizing mind. They want to understand and they look to understand things. They give really good even-keeled advice. You might not like it because they're not going to be too worried about your feelings.
Yeah.
But again, like they have this deep sensitivity. They also want to be understood themselves, but they're so afraid of being seen as incompetent that they hide themselves and their talents and their interests and their messy humanness.
Yeah.
When they are stressed out, type 5 moves to type 7, which is the epicure or the enthusiast. But they move into the kind of like reckless.
Interesting.
Yes. So type 7s can be real freewheeling, unreliable, scatterbrained. And type 5s move into that. They just start like careening around recklessly.
When my husband had his quarter life crisis, he dated a stripper.
There you go. Right.
That's a hard 7.
Fully reckless.
Shit.
Anyway.
When they move towards health, that energy shifts towards 8. And they actually like show up for other people. They show up. Yeah. They expend their energy to protect others, to fight for others. They're much less stingy, and they're big. Their energy is big in a way that it isn't when they're stressed out or when they're kind of just in their average space.
Yeah.
So that's your type 5. Type 6 is known as the loyal skeptic. There is a theory that I have heard out there that most people are type 6. Like,
Yeah.
when you kind of break up the Enneagram by type, percentage wise, most people fall into type 6, which is interesting. I don't know if that's true, but I've heard it. Again, type 6 is known as the loyal skeptic, and they are very, very loyal people. They're ride or die. And they're very skeptical. They don't take shit at face value. And they walk into the room and they're like, everybody's lying. That's their
Yes,
shit.
this isn't you, Ariana.
And this is 98%.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
they will not take a fucking compliment.
Oh my God, that's fucking me. Okay, continue.
Right. They now the reason for that is that they have this projection tendency, right? They actually are very mistrusting of their own internal guidance and judgment. And so they project it outwards and they question fucking everyone at all times. The questioning is relentless. They poke all the holes in whatever suggestion or plan that you bring forth. They are very good at seeing what could go wrong. And that is a good thing because you need someone like that on your team. You need to know what you haven't thought through because the type 6 has definitely fucking thought through it.
Yeah.
They see what could go wrong. But again, they don't trust themselves and they project that outward. The funny thing is type 6s spend so much time preparing for what could go wrong. And that may not be in the form of carrying both Advil and Tylenol. That may be I'm preparing. So one of my colleagues is a type 6 and she's like, oh, I don't plan stuff, right? I don't plan exit routes and I don't plan out stuff. She's like, but emotionally, I have prepared for the worst case.
Oh,
right. She
my emotional boxes, I have the lid always half ready to be closed.
Right.
Always close that one up.
Right.
Put
exactly.
it aside.
She is ready. And the thing is, in a crisis, 6s are amazing because they've gone over every possible scenario in their head. So they're ready. But they forget that. They lose sight of that as soon as the crisis is over. And they lose the ability to trust themselves. And they have this thing where they're always looking for guidance outside of themselves. And when it comes to someone who's in leadership, they either kind of completely drink the Kool-Aid and fully align themselves with that leader, or other direction. And they become really fucking uncooperative and really belligerent, and they put up a fight with the leader. But they're not really that interested in being the leader either. Yeah, they don't want to be in charge, but they want to make sure that whoever's in charge knows what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, again, super, super loyal people, very, very, protective people. They go to great lengths to take care of their people. It's hard to earn the trust of a 6, but once you have it, they're with you to the grave. They really are.
Yeah.
And they're hilarious. They have a really snarky sense of humor. They kind of gallows humor. Cause it brings a little levity to the death that's around every fucking thing.
I think you need to rethink everything that you thought, Ariana.
I'm not sure.
You certainly have access to 6.
Oh my gosh.
I'm gonna let her.
So what are their little thingies? I'm sorry, I can't remember the names.
The integration and disintegration. Yes. It's okay. I'm with you. So in disintegration, they move towards the hostile side of 3. They don't give a fuck about anybody else, and they get competitive, and they get cutthroat, and they get disingenuous.
Wow.
They move towards the darker side of 3.
Mm-hmm.
When they're in a more healthy space, they get off the hamster wheel of fear and they move towards the more peaceful, kind of solid ground of type 9, where they have a lot of space for a lot of different competing voices and opinions, but it doesn't overwhelm them. And they can actually like hold it all and sort of like discern it. So that's your type 6. Yes. Now type 7, and I call the type 7s the party people of the Enneagram. They are known as the epicure or the enthusiast. These are really fun people to be around. Like, they're just straight up fun. They have the best stories. 7s have the best stories. They collect adventures. They collect stories. They just collect experiences. But they do not want to go deep because they might hit some pain.
Ooh.
They're very pain avoidant.
Okay.
Yes. They don't want to deal with pain if they can't see the value in it immediately. And even then, they're only going to deal with it as long as it like gets to a resolution. So they have a lot of unresolved pain in their lives. And they come off as very like carefree and kind of, carefree is the best word for it. Like, they don't seem to have much that sort of ties them down. But they actually are just like running away from their own internal pain. So they like to plan lots of options for themselves that they will not commit to.
Wow.
So they know where the best parties are this weekend. They know the best restaurants to eat at. They know all the amazing items on the menu at all of the restaurants. And they're going to order 17 things off of the menu. And then take you to another restaurant. Like, they just don't like to commit.
It's my brother. Right, for sure, my brother.
Really, really fun.
That's
really,
also
really
my
fun.
brother.
They're very fun.
Yeah.
But you can't fucking get them to commit.
Yeah.
And they're kind of flaky. So, they also have like, they kind of fantasize as well, right? They like see the potential in everything. They're really, really driven by and compelled by potential and novelty and freshness. So they're great brainstormers, but like getting them to actually fucking execute is like pulling teeth.
God,
it's a lot. So when they are stressed out, this is like a wild energy shift. They move to type 1. And
What?
I know, it's wild. And they tell you what you're doing wrong. They know what's right for you and what's wrong for you, and they will tell you.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then when they're in a healthier space, they actually move towards the like very sober, disciplined side of 5. So all of that energy gets channeled into follow through. And they hold themselves to guidelines and boundaries, and they're not like careening around and bouncing around. They're actually like getting things done.
Yeah. Wow.
So,
God.
yeah. So there you have it. Those are your types. All 9 types.
I am
Damn.
feeling woke. Which is the whole point of this.
I love this. I think I love this more than astrology just because it's something new to me, and it's not like you were born on this day, so you are this. It's like it's fluid. You kind of like go in and out of life like one way or the other kind of thing.
Right, exactly. So that is a great segue into like, what good is this? Like, what purpose does this all serve, right? So we have our type, and so we have this amazing kind of blueprint for what is great about us, what's wonderful about us, and also what traps we fall into, like what our bullshit is when we're on our bullshit. So it's the Enneagram of personality typing is meant to help you catch yourself in the act, right? Like in real time self-observation, so that you can figure out, again, as an 8, like when I start to feel the instinct to fight, I can pause and say, oh, like I'm trying to protect my vulnerability here. And if I follow this instinct, then I'm really just repeating a pattern that's going to hold people at an arm's length rather than allowing someone to see the better parts of me. So that's really what that kind of knowledge is meant, how it's meant to serve us.
Yeah.
And then on the same token, if you know the people in your lives, if like you know what their types are, you can help grow some compassion for them too. Because like we all want to be understood and we're not starting from the same starting lines. Mm-hmm. So to understand that the type 1s in your life have this relentless internal judge, when they start correcting you, you can be like, you know what? Like, this is just them giving themselves a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
Otherwise, first of all, that internal judge, like, they're projecting it outward, but also, like, what they're saying to me is not nearly as harsh as what they are saying to themselves. Right? So you can, it grows the capacity for compassion for yourself and for others.
I feel like this is extremely important in relationships. I mean, like,
for real.
Crazy. Yes, yeah.
You gonna make Gordon take the test after this?
Oh, fuck yeah, I already told him.
What do you think he is? Like, going over what we've gone over, like, what do you think?
5.
5, yeah.
Yeah, he's a 5.
That's what I see, too. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Sorry for interrupting you again.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, it'll help you gain greater insight and understanding into them. And it also, like, it gives us a language to talk about our bullshit that's actually very, like, practical and helpful.
Yeah. Because I think it's more practical than the signs. Because you're not just stuck in a box.
Right, exactly. And you're looking at motivation, too. Like, you're getting under the hood, and you're not just sort of perceiving behaviors. You're like, oh, there's an engine under here that is churning because it's trying to protect vulnerability or trying to prevent you from seeing them as incompetent or trying to keep peace because they think they're not important, right? Like, there's a motivation underneath everything. And that's actually a more helpful thing to understand than just the behavior. So it's incredibly useful in all kinds of relationships, professional, personal, and your relationship with yourself, because you need to observe yourself in order to grow and, like, be less of an asshole.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. So that's the gift of the Enneagram. It really is an incredible system. It's really great. And I love working with it. I love introducing people to it, and I love making fun of it. Because I think we need to laugh and kind of take the sting out of the painful shit, you know.
Thank you, Liz. Is there anything else that you wanted to, like, go over? I kind of want to leave it open for an episode 2 if you're down.
Oh, hell yeah.
100% down. Yeah.
Awesome.
Maybe if your listeners have questions or if you all have questions or whatever. There's so much to talk about. So I
guarantee you I will think of questions.
Same.
Awesome. Well, I am really, really appreciative to have been invited on here. This has been a lot of fun, and I'll come back anytime.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ariana, you kind of want to hit us with an outro. Do you remember how to do that?
Sometimes.
It has been so long since
it has been a motherfucking minute.
Like almost 2 months, I think, since we've actually talked to each other.
Oh my god, yeah. For real. Well, you can find us over at Wildwood Pod on Instagram. Check out our link tree. Caroline has all of her shit linked there because as a one, she's handled everything.
That's me. Yeah, and then Liz, your Instagram is rude ass
Enneagram. Yep.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, check her out, y'all.
Yep, do that, and then we'll have an episode 2. Email us your questions, comment your questions, like anything, and I'll send them to her, and we will kind of put all those together and talk some more. Okay, it was good to talk to you, Liz.
It was great to talk to y'all. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.
Bye.